I'm John Bala, Chief Content Creator of the Critical Thinking Literacy channel. Today we explore the complex history of U.S. immigration, from its earliest definitions to modern policies like Title 42. As you will see, U.S. immigration history is complex and full of nuance. Immigration in the early U.S. was defined by the Naturalization Act of 1790, which limited citizenship to free white persons. This foundational law tied American identity to race. In these early years, immigration was largely unrestricted and managed at the local level. County courts, rather than the federal government, handled the naturalization process. Throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries, millions of Europeans were granted legal access after a 3 to 5 hour vetting process through ports of entry such as Ellis Island. This era also saw the Chinese Exclusion Act, the first major federal law to ban a specific nationality, rooted in economic competition and racial prejudice. The 1924 Johnson-Reed Act introduced a discriminatory quota system, favoring Northern Europeans while virtually ending Asian immigration. These laws changed due to rising nativism and fears that new immigrants were too dissimilar to the native-born population. It would be difficult to understand the current immigration controversy, particularly for Mexican immigrants, without understanding the Bracero Program, which lasted from 1942 to 1964. Bracero, or guest, wasn't just a simple labor deal. It was a massive geopolitical agreement between the United States and Mexico. The program was originally conceived to fill the severe labor shortage resulting from World War II. While the program began as a temporary wartime measure, it was extended by Public Law 78 in 1951 during the Korean War, because big agribusiness had become addicted to cheap labor. By 1964, a perfect storm of opposition ended the program. Labor unions, like the one led by Cesar Chavez, argued it suppressed American wages, while civil rights activists exposed the shameful living conditions in labor camps. Throughout this time frame, over 4.6 million contracts were issued. These men faced harsh conditions, including exposure to toxic chemicals and systemic wage theft. When the Bracero program ended, it rebranded an entire workforce. U.S. officials would often encourage workers to cross illegally, arrest them, and then immediately parole them back as legal braceros. This taught both the workers and the farmers that the legal status was just a piece of paper that could be manipulated by the state at any time. This process became known as drybacks. If you're finding this information valuable, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share with others. Even while the government was recruiting Mexicans, it launched Operation Wetback, a militarized campaign that deported over 1 million people. This sent a conflicting message. We want your labor, but we don't want you. When the program ended in 1964, the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965 followed right after. For the first time, it put strict numerical caps on immigration from Mexico. The economic demand for workers, however, remained, and the migration patterns were already 20 years deep. When the legal guest worker door was slammed shut, the same people who had been invited for decades became illegal overnight, simply for continuing to show up for the jobs that were still waiting for them. In the last 40 years, the distinction between claiming political asylum, a legal right, and intentional illegal entry has become central to the debate. The Refugee Act of 1980 formalized the process for those fleeing persecution, providing a clear legal path for asylum. Asylum seekers declare themselves to authorities upon entry, while illegal entry involves intentionally avoiding inspection. In summary, U.S. immigration history shows a shift from local open doors to a system that often paradoxically discourages and penalizes the legal asylum process. Understanding these systemic barriers is essential to holding an informed opinion. Netting it all out. Current 2025 immigration mix by categories. As you can see, the largest portion of immigrants, that is 49% or 24.5 million people, are naturalized citizens. The next largest share, that is 28% or 13.9 million people, are undocumented immigrants. Next, 18% or 9 million people are permanent residents or green card holders. And lastly, 5% or 2.5 million people have temporary visa status. That said, the undocumented immigrant percentage is likely inflated due to Title 42, which effectively stopped, or more accurately, blocked and expelled, a vast number of asylum seekers at the U.S. border between March 2020 and May 2023. Used by both the Trump and Biden administrations to manage the COVID-19 pandemic, it allowed border agents to rapidly expel migrants to Mexico or their home countries without allowing them to formally claim asylum, resulting in nearly 3 million expulsions. In effect, Title 42 made the pursuit of legal immigration for many impossible. Current 2025 incarceration comparison. This bar chart shows that undocumented immigrants are roughly 50% less likely to be incarcerated than native-born Americans. In addition, legal immigrants are 74% less likely to be incarcerated than native-born Americans. In other words, both undocumented and legal immigrants have far smaller incarceration rates, which may surprise many due to disproportionate media coverage of immigrant crime. The current situation for asylum seekers. On his first day in office, January 20th, 2025, President Trump signed a series of executive orders. The most significant actions included Presidential Proclamation 10,088, guaranteeing the state's protection against invasion. It directs border agents to summarily turn away migrants and restricts them from invoking asylum. Executive Order 14,165, securing our borders. This order reinstated the Remain in Mexico Protocol. These actions collectively created a situation where there is virtually no way to access the U.S. asylum system at the southern border. Many of these orders have faced immediate legal challenges and some temporary blocks in federal court. While Republicans and Democrats rarely agree on just about anything, they do agree that our immigration system has been broken for the past 40 years. The Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986, signed by President Ronald Reagan, was the last significant overhaul of U.S. immigration policy. While other laws have since addressed specific areas, such as the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act of 1996 and the Real ID Act of 2005, comprehensive reform has faced decades of legislative deadlock. The most recent attempt at reform, the Emergency National Security Supplemental Appropriations Act, often referred to simply as the Border Deal, was introduced in early 2024. Senator Lankford spent 4 months negotiating the package, which he described as the most conservative border security bill in 4 decades. Despite initial support from Senate leadership, the bill was blocked in the Senate. Donald Trump reportedly urged Republicans to oppose the measure because he did not want to grant President Joe Biden a political win on border security during an election year and preferred to use the issue as a centerpiece for his own campaign. And that's where we remain today, with a broken immigration system and plenty of blame to go around. That concludes our video on a brief history of U.S. immigration. Please leave your feedback in the comments section below. Until next time, think critically and choose wisely.